The economy will have to expand to almost 3 times the present level.
We have allocated 230 billion rand over the next 10 years to achieve the restructuring of the electricity sector.
Madam Speaker, I therefore table the following documents before this House.
It's been a tale of two budgets. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has proposed a 1% value-added tax increase over the next 2 years. This may take our VAT to 16% by the year 2027. The minister's also promised not to increase personal income tax, yet tax brackets have not been adjusted for inflation either. Heading into the speech, however, DA leader John Steenhuisen says as a GNU partner, his party does not support the minister's proposals as they stand, which means ultimately this budget is up for further scrutiny by our lawmakers in Parliament. Up next, we'll deconstruct the budget with our business editor Helena Wasserman. Later, we'll reveal the South African towns with the cleanest and dirtiest air, and end off with some sage 2025 dating advice. All this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. While the ink on the latest budget speech is not even dry, the DA's already rubbished it. So is the Trade Union Federation COSATU, arguing it can't support tax increases on the poor. But to take us through Minister Godongwana's proposed numbers, our business editor Helena Wasserman joins us now in our Cape Town studios. Thank you so much for your time, Helena. I really appreciate it. How was the budget speech for you?
I think it was quite an interesting budget. I was surprised by how different the documents looked from the February budget. I mean, the basics were still the same. Spending didn't change much. But there were a couple of new, interesting additions. And on the whole, I think it's a more considered document.
Okay. More considered document. It seems like every year when it comes to the budget, just overall, the balancing act is getting more and more difficult here with the state debt burden and what it can do with its sort of social grant net, if you will. It felt like this time round, just because we're dealing with the GNU, that balancing act is even more tighter than ever before, right?
There's more accountability. I think more people needed to be happy and satisfied with the budget. So yeah, I think it was a trickier act. The ANC couldn't just do what it wanted to do.
Sure. And I think they still can't do what they want to do. And this is obviously going to go through the various committees in Parliament. Okay, so take us through the numbers. I'm hoping you'd be able to assist me here as you understand the markets a little bit better and the numbers better than I would. I didn't do very well with math at high school. How significant would be the proposal of this 0.5% VAT increase for the first year and then possibly 1% over 2 years?
So it means about 13.5 billion rand in extra revenue, 0.5 percentage point increase this year. Of course, in the February budget, 2 percentage points were mooted. So it's significant. To me, the more significant move, and I think that which will have a much bigger impact on households, is the personal income tax bracket creep, the fact that Treasury didn't apply inflationary increases to the rebates and the brackets themselves. So people will end up paying more if they got salary increases. I think that's going to be even more painful than that, especially in this.
And explain that suddenly to the layperson. So whilst personal income taxes don't necessarily go up on the face of it, the brackets haven't been adjusted for inflation. What does that mean to the layperson?
So say you earn 20,000 rand a month, right? At the moment, you're paying about 2,200 in income tax, and you're getting almost 17,800 rand out, right? Bottom line, you're earning 20,000 rand a month, you're paying income tax of 2,200 rand, and you're getting 17,800 out. So if you get an increase, a pay hike of 5%, you're now earning 21,000 rand a month, right? But this also means that you're paying more tax. So usually every year Treasury adds a little bit of sweetener to the tax tables, which means that if you get a inflationary link salary increase, it cushions you so that you basically pay less tax, and you're sort of in the same tax position, and you get that whole 5% out. Back to the example, you earn 20,000, you now earn 21,000 because you got a 5% salary hike, right? But because the way the tables are structured, you're actually paying income tax of 2,440 Rand a month. In essence, the bottom line is you're basically only getting an increase of closer to 4% rather than the 5% that your employer granted. So we call it bracket creep. It's basically just the fact that Treasury didn't change the tax tables to take inflation into account. It means that if you get an inflation-linked salary, you basically backward.
And Helena, this is 2 years in a row now.
This is 2 years in a row, so now it's really starting to sting. It has a massive impact. And in the February budget, there was some relief. There was some inflationary adjustment, especially in the lower salary levels. That's completely gone now. Everybody's in the same boat, and yeah, it's going to hit.
What does this say about SARS? Obviously, there's been a lot of consternation back and forth between the ANC ministers and SARS' Edward Kieswetter about what to do next, et al. What does this say about SARS and its ability to bring in taxes so that government has more money to spend?
I don't think this specifically says anything about SARS. It is concerning that government is taxing households in this way. So a couple of years ago, traditionally in South Africa, company income tax and household personal income tax basically contributed the same percentage of, roughly the same amount of tax to the fiscus. Now, it's just, personal income tax is completely out of control. I think it's for the coming year, personal income tax will contribute something like 811 billion Rand, while corporate income tax will only bring 331 billion Rand. So you can see that government's really leaning on households with personal income tax. And also, it's acknowledging, Treasury did acknowledge in the budget documents that we now have among some of the highest personal income tax levels in the world. So, yeah, it is concerning. But once you're in the trap, you can't escape. And government knows that.
And of course, a shrinking tax base
Yes.
at the same time, which is the biggest conundrum of it all.
Yeah.
So that was the thinking, obviously, in this proposed budget. The finance minister saying rather allow everybody to be affected by this 0.5% VAT hike over the next year. And then in the second year, there might not possibly be the full 1%, but you'll have to see whether or not government has enough money for that. That 0.5%, it's still going to sting.
It is. It definitely is. Government did announce that more foods will be exempted from VAT, offal, tinned vegetables, for example. So the idea is that the lower income groups will be buffered against this, but a VAT rate hike is always painful. South Africa has a relatively sort of middle of the range VAT rate. There are many countries that have much higher VAT rates than us. But of course, you have to keep in mind that our overall income tax and tax rates through donations tax and name it, sugar tax, carbon tax levies, the list goes on and on. We already very tax to the hilt, basically. So, yeah, I don't think the VAT hike will have a major impact on consumption. What worries me is that it will push up inflation. So it means obviously prices become higher, climb higher, and this could have consequent interest rate cuts going down the line. So, we'll have to how that play out.
Yes, because we've been enjoying not paying so much on our bond these days, and it's actually been a welcome reprieve since late last year, right? Okay, the debt burden. We get told about this every proposed budget, and I always say proposed because especially around this time we don't know if it's in its current form it's going to be ratified by our lawmakers. But this debt burden, is it stabilizing? I seem to have gotten an idea from Minister Godongwana that there seems to be some positivity on the horizon. Is that right?
Well, it worsened. The debt burden looked a bit worse than I thought in the past year. So the hope is that this year it'll stabilize at around 70% of GDP, which internationally is not that high, but we are really struggling with paying back the debt. I mean, 22 cents out of every rand that the government's earning is going towards paying off our debt. So I think this year will be, if they can't prove that they can stabilize debt at these levels, we will be in.
The minister was saying around 22 cents out of every rand earned in tax are now used to repay debt. So where is the biggest government spending areas at the moment, traditionally?
It's always been education. Education gets the largest slice of the pie. As you mentioned, 22 cents out of every tax rand goes towards paying off debt. So debt is our debt service costs. Repaying debt is now the number 2 expense on the budget. Social development, which is all the social welfare grants, then health. And this year, economic development sees the biggest growth in spending. More than 8%, 1 trillion rand have been set aside for infrastructure projects over the next 3 years. And this budget is also adding another 50 billion to that. And interestingly, Treasury announced that they're setting up a unit to look specifically after these infrastructure projects, and they'll be coordinating the financing, etc. So there seems to be quite a big push into infrastructure, and some are also saying that this could be seen as a pro-growth budget.
Quickly on COVID-19 grants, I mean, the minister again touting the fact that South Africa is amongst the most robust sort of social grant systems in the world, and that has been a fact that has been sort of celebrated by unions et al. Our grants are going up, but not as much as the initial February budget sort of projected. Why is that?
Yeah, that was very interesting. So grants are still going up by more than inflation. And when we asked Treasury why these hikes were trimmed from the February budget, they told us that given that VAT is not going up by 2 percentage points, they don't need to cushion the poorest of the poor to the same extent. But they seem to be very serious about reviewing social welfare grants and especially job creation programs and to see where they can cut costs. They're saying it's not sustainable. We're going to add more and more people, for example, on the old age grants as the population grow older. So for now, the COVID grant's been extended for another year. It stays at 390 rand, but that comes at a massive cost.
Absolutely. And if you want to read more with the graphs and various figures expertly put together by a business editor, Helena Wasserman, you can click on the Budget Nutshell article. It's going to bite expertly put together earlier today. Anything else you'd like to add at this stage that I might have potentially missed? I feel like this whole proposed budget could be in the rubbish bin before we open our eyes again.
I don't think so. I mean, the minister told us that the DA did agree to the 0.5% VAT hike. He said that they had demands that above his pay grades, outside the scope of Treasury, expropriation bill related, etc. My feeling is that after a lot of negotiation, the budget will pretty much stay the same. Who knows what will happen? Okay. But it's quite a detailed budget, and in his speech as well, he made a couple of commitments that's not in the budget documents, but I think should appease.
For the live updates from the various parties in Parliament reacting to the budget speech, we're seeing various utterances by the MK Party, Freedom Front Plus, basically slating the VAT hike, not supporting it at this stage. It's going to be interesting how this sort of plays out. Helena Wasserman, our business editor here at News 24, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
To our trending topic now, residents of Nieuwoudtville in the Northern Cape can breathe a sigh of relief. Quite literally, as a new report has confirmed for a second year in a row that the town has the cleanest air in South Africa and the second cleanest in the world. Swiss technology company IQ Air has surveyed the air quality of some 138 countries, finding that our country's filthiest air is found in Centurion and Vereniging. South Africa on the whole is in fact the 47th worst air polluter in the world. But for the globe's finest oxygen supply, be sure to stop by Puerto Rico's Mayagüez, whilst Central Africa's Chad is officially the world's most polluted nation. Still, Nieuwoudtville is number one for Africa's least polluted air, with Worcester and Cape Town in second and third respectively. Nieuwoudtville, situated in the Hantam Karoo, is also famed for its spring wildflower season and numerous historical sites dating far back to the mid-1800s. For the full write-up, see our article, This SA Town is Among the World's Top 20 for Clean Air, by journalists Lami Zomarji and Kakamba Mutundu. And finally, hoping to up your online dating game in 2025? Well, Cape Town relationship counsellor Shelley Lewin recommends crafting a unique app biography to avoid being swiped left. So that means your bio should not be too generic and steer clear from using negative language that says, quote unquote, no time wasters, for example. Rather, Lewin argues you need to be more specific. Share a quote from your favorite comedian, just don't overdo it, a recent adventurous experience, your values, interests, but restrict it all to around 6 sentences max. In a nutshell, Lewin reckons you should treat this write-up as, well, going on a first date. For more tips, check out our journalist Carmen Williams' write-up called The Anatomy of a Great Bio. It's under our News 24 Relationships section.
Looking to get lost in a new book? Well, this month's free audiobook for News 24 subscribers is
Children of Sugarcane. It's a novel by senior journalist Joanne Joseph.
detailing how indentured labourers were brought from India to the Natal colony in the late 1800s.
Here's an excerpt from her book.
The first few days I walked in my mother's shoes, I learned how strenuous her tasks had been and what little reward they offered. I had to ensure the smooth running of our household, getting up before sunrise to begin preparing my father's breakfast, usually a meal of roti, accompanied by braised potatoes or lentils.
From Budget 2.0 to Nieuwoudtville's cleanest air. Well, it's been a humdinger show right here on The Lead on News 24, and if you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can drop us your thoughts, comments, or voice notes at tips@24.com. That's TIPS@24.com. That's all from me, Graeme Raubenheimer. Stay tuned for our next edition.